How often have you gone into an interview and felt completely unprepared? How many interviews do you do, right? Salons are looking for staff, and you're probably conducting interview after interview after interview. But there's a couple of challenges. Either one, you get stuck in a rut, asking the same questions over and over again, or you kind of go into it kind of completely unprepared, and therefore you're not getting a true sense of that individual's real qualifications or fit within your culture. In today's episode, we're going to break down how to master the salon interview process, give you some key tips for success so that you can get the most out of your interviews and be effective with them, so you're wasting less time and hiring better quality candidates. Welcome to the Salon Scoop, a podcast by Salon S.O.S. I'm your host, Scott Moon, the founder of Salon S.O.S., and I'm obsessed with helping salon professionals live their best life. In this show, we shop talk all things salon to bring you real-life stories, debates, entertainment, and inspiration to help you find happiness and success in this beautiful industry. If you work in the salon industry in any capacity, this podcast is open to you. So set down your scissors or rinse out that toner and let's get into it. Welcome everybody to another episode of the Salon Scoop. Today, we're going to get this scoop on salon interviews from the perspective of the person who's conducting the interview, right? If you're looking for staff, if you're looking for, again, it could be a commissioned employee, it could be a booth renter, but someone who's going to be coming in and working in your space, you need to be effective with your interview process. With me today to sort of break this down is the one and only Sarah Perrin, who is not only a salon owner, a salon service provider. She brings a wealth of expertise and experience because, Sarah, you've probably been on all ends of, whether as being an interviewee, an interviewer, and probably more often than not in the last 10 years, an interviewer. So thanks for being on the show with us today. What's your least favorite part about giving an interview?
My least favorite part is I can feel the nerves when they walk in, and I have done so many interviews where I am so stressed out leading up to it. So I think it's more that, like, it's their energy. I just feel bad for putting them in a position where they're stressed out when they don't need to be. So I actually, as you were talking about this, I was kind of laughing because the last interview that I did was applying for Salon S.O.S. And I was a bundle of nerves leading up to it. And it gave me such a new perspective. And I feel like that's what's so important, especially for salon owners who've, had their own business for quite a while, is like we kind of forget how anxiety ridden the candidates are leading up to the interview process. So I think that's one of the biggest things is like, I just almost get that secondhand anxiety for them of just like I'm not nervous to ask you the questions. I've done this a million times kind of thing. But once I had that perspective of feeling so nervous applying for a new job and, trying to be on your, trying to have all the right answers off the top and all of these different things, I feel like that's the part that I don't like about it is just just creating a situation in which somebody has anxiety around.
Yeah, it makes sense. I mean, it's an awkward situation for both people. And
Yeah.
I believe, as the interviewer, it's your responsibility to create the right environment. And it's so important, as let's say a salon owner in this particular case, you have to have an interview process in place if you want to be successful at bringing in the right talent into your organization. So in today's episode, we're going to be breaking down all of this to give you some ideas and some tips for what that interview process should look like, because it can really be the difference, right, between welcoming in a dynamic team member who fits with the culture, or you end up dealing with, a mismatch who's not delivering on expectations, and you're frustrated with them, and they're frustrated, and then you just go through that hamster wheel that we've all been through. So let's try to avoid that and learn from best practices as we go. So Sarah, can you just sort of start us off about why is it really important that we have a structured process in place?
Yeah, for sure. So again, like I said, I really try to make things feel as casual and cool as possible, but at the same time, it is important to have that structure in place. So as much as you want to make them feel comfortable, you are also dealing with your business and you want to make sure that you're not wasting yours or their time kind of thing and making the most of that time together and getting the answers to the questions that you need, right? So especially for new professionals, it kind of sets clear expectations and allows you to gauge their enthusiasm, technical skills, and adaptability to your salon's environment. For experienced professionals, it offers insight into their career progression and readiness to contribute at a higher level, depending what type of setup you have. So either way, just like a well-conducted interview can highlight not only professional competence, but also a cultural fit essential for maintaining the cohesive team that you already have. So again, instead of just, the basic, you know, what are your skills, what are you not dealing well with, like we like to have like a well-rounded kind of intro, the questions that you're going to ask, as well as like follow up with asking them questions, letting them know exactly what's going to happen. It also helps to reduce some of your anxiety as the interviewer because you are just following a step-by-step process as opposed to just going in and winging it. So I feel like it's important for both the candidate and the interviewer to have a nice structured process for exactly how that interview is going to go.
Yeah, and you as as a salon owner, you should be literally having a written down process for this that you're going to be able to kind of follow. It doesn't mean that it's going to be the exact same for every single person in terms of questions that you ask, but the structure, right, is what's important that you want to be consistent with. And I'm going to say it's really important that you're focusing on what matters most in that interview. You have limited time, right? And you're making a really serious assessment or judgment about whether that person is the the right fit for the position or not. And you're making a calculated guess or a calculated risk. But the better you are with really focusing your time on the important stuff, right? You're increasing your odds of making the right decision about either hiring them or not offering them the position. So don't just go through the standard checking off the boxes that they have on their CV. You should be doing that way before they even walk through your door, right? You want to make sure that you're asking questions that are going to provoke details about their skills and experience, not just how many years have you been behind the chair and where were you working before, and think about some of the past interviews that you've done and some questions of things that came out that you learned about a potential candidate that you were like, "Ooh, that was really interesting." Learn from that, right? So you can kind of keep that in your memory bank to be asking again. You have to have a good balance between figuring out their technical skills and capability and comforts, but also their soft skills, right? Because those soft skills is going to impact how they integrate with your culture, right? And fit with your other team members, but also those soft skills about how they're going to treat your customers, right? The guest experience. Do they have those? So focus really on what matters the most in that limited time that you have with them is really critical.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. And I feel like it's also super important for the interviewers to, kind of think beyond your basic questions and kind of dive a little bit deeper. It's funny, as you were talking about this, I've just thought about the past interviews that we've done, and some of the people that interviewed worst ended up being some of our best employees, and vice versa. Sometimes people interview beautifully and they just don't end up, either meshing with your team's culture or whatever it might be. So again, not just asking those basic questions about, like, again, how long have you been doing this? What is your best service that you're doing? Because as much as the technical skills are important, the personality and who they are as a person is equally as important, because they can be the best hairstylist under the sun, and if they have a bad attitude or whatever it is kind of thing, or they don't work well with people, that could end up being super detrimental to your business as a hire as well, right? So I really like asking kind of more thought-provoking questions that can reveal more about a candidate's character, problem-solving abilities, and interpersonal skills. For instance, request examples of how they've handled difficult client situations or how they've navigated stressful situations at work. We'll kind of give some more examples of that later. But I do find that you really do get a sense more of people when you ask these types of questions than just the basic ones. And the reason this kind of popped into my head is I've had a lot of clients in the past who have been lawyers, and I love asking them when they are applying for their articling position, what the weird interview question that they get. Next time you're talking to somebody who's a lawyer, I'm like, they're some of the most fascinating questions that you've ever heard, and it's not anything that you can prepare for. I remember one of the questions that one of my clients told me was, how would you describe a bicycle to a blind man? And it's like, again, it has nothing to do with being a lawyer, it has nothing to do with being a hairstylist. But again, it just like kind of gauges, like, again, how they think on their feet, how they would deal with, certain things and stuff like that. So I'm like, and maybe that's not a specific question that I'm asking, but it's just really interesting to kind of ask again these more thought-provoking questions that they're not necessarily preparing for, and kind of getting to see how they work on their feet and like how they can problem solve in the moment.
Yeah, it's definitely something to inspire yourself from. I remember when I was, fresh out of university and applying for marketing jobs, I still remember to this day one question that was asked of me, and it was, why are the manholes for sewers that the workers go down into, why are they built round? Again, so random, I was completely thrown off. And it's not like there's an actual, real answer or not, but they
No.
just wanted to see how you thought on your feet and kind of your creativity level, because I was going into marketing, so that was important. So think about what are some of the skills that you're looking for, and maybe you can, again, do some research online if need be to get some creative questions that are going to, get people to answer outside of the standard, and it shows how they think on their feet, how they react to uncomfortable situations. I like to always in interviews throw, I'll be talking about, business situations, and then I'll throw something completely different, and I'll be like, tell me what the typical weekend looks like in your life.
Yeah.
And, just to sort of throw them off, and then I come back to more business questions to just kind of see how they handle the transitions and whatnot, because sometimes they're too prepared, for an interview like you were talking about. So. Okay, so let's talk about how to actually create a solid interview process. Let's get a little bit more detailed here in terms of what this structure should look like. Our recommendation is, number one, you should have what's called preparation stage. You've got to go into this well prepared. And that sometimes just means you got to know exactly what you're looking for in a candidate, and to make sure that that's been communicated clearly in the job posting that you've put out there. Way too often we just sort of take this for granted and say, looking for a stylist, and then you're getting a whole mixed bag of cat's meow of people applying. If you can be a little bit more clear yourself on what you're looking for, and not just a minimum 5 years of experience, but think about all the different things that they're going to need to do in their role that you have an expectation for. And maybe that's related to retail, maybe that's related to other tasks in the salon in terms of support role with a team that they're going to be expected to do. Maybe they're going to be you do some special sort of education and training or things with your guests. Make sure that that's clearly identified so that you are attracting more of the right people into the door to start with. Secondly, is to do an initial screening. This again happens very, very infrequently, but think of how much time you can save yourself by just conducting a quick phone call or video call with a candidate, inviting them or not, but to do that screening, to maybe invite them to the interview. Because just having a quick 2-minute phone conversation can tell you a lot about a person's mood, their communication skills, right? You can validate some quick qualifications. And this can save you a ton of time just filtering out people who don't meet those minimum requirements or that really can't hold a proper conversation, right? If you just do this by email, some people might do it, you're at risk because who knows who's writing that email for them. Maybe they're using a, artificial intelligence tool and coming up with like a beautiful, well-written email. Doing it over the phone or even better in video quickly, 2 minutes can really help you. All right, now that you've prepared properly, you've done initial screening, now you have the in-person interview. And during that in-person interview, few things that you want to do. Obviously, you're going to have your list of questions that you've prepared, right? Where you're talking about behavioral questions, you're talking about, technical skill questions, you're talking about cultural fit questions in terms of, how they work with other people, how they work with clients, bring up specific situations like Sarah was talking about, and Sarah's going to share with us some more specific questions to ask at this stage. You also should have some form of technical assessment, right? Get them to actually do some kind of a test where they can demonstrate some of their skills depending on what type of job they are applying for. And that's even if you're applying for, front desk position. Make sure that you have some kind of test where you can see what their computer skills are, or reception skills, or customer service skills, right? Doing a quick practical test can really help. You may also want to have a second person have a conversation with this candidate, right? That'll depend obviously on the size of your salon, the seniority of some of the people, but maybe you want a second opinion from one of your senior stylists, or maybe you have a manager, maybe it's a front desk person, so that after the interview, you can at least bounce off of each other, like just a general feeling, right? Gathering feedback from someone else that spoke with them can be useful. Obviously, if you're the salon owner, you're making the final decision, but having a quick feedback session with somebody can be a very valuable way. Then the last thing you might have, depending again on how many candidates you have coming through, you might end up having a second round. So maybe you've narrowed it down to two candidates that you feel good about. You might ask them to come in for a second round of interview. And maybe in that situation, you're going to have them have more interaction, right, with the rest of the team. It might be more detailed technical questions, or or skill test, that happens. And again, typically in that second stage, you would really want them to interact with people from the team so that you can see that level of fit, because you've probably assessed that technically they're okay, but if you're deciding between two people, that fit is really a critical component of it. So making sure you have that structured process in place is really important. Sarah, maybe you can inspire our listeners a little bit with some specific questions, how they can come up with questions, what questions tend to work well based on what we've just been discussing.
Yeah, for sure. So in the blog, you can check it out. There's a bunch of questions that you can kind of use to, inspire your own questions or take them right from there. But I'm just going to share a couple of questions from our interview process that I absolutely love hearing the answers to. And again, obviously, we have, like you said, questions about technical ability, how long they've been doing it, what their goals are, those types of things. But some of the kind of different questions that we'll ask to kind of get a little bit more of a, personality check and things like that is like, I always really like asking, what aspects of being a hairstylist do you not like? Because I always find that's really interesting. It's always like, what are you most excited about? What are you like, whatever, but like just straight up, what are the parts of the salon industry that you don't like? I feel like that gets a really good vibe to see, like, again, they might say, I don't like how, there's a reputation of, stylists being gossipy or catty or something like that. That gives us the opportunity to talk about our code of honor and how that is a big thing that we stand by, is that there is no gossip. We have a call and be called with grace kind of rule, those types of things. I also, instead of asking, what are your, what are the best things about you? What are your strengths? I like asking, how would your friends describe you? I feel like that's also a really interesting kind of, way of, again, gauging not only what they think of themselves, but what those around them think about them. I love asking, what are your pet peeves? Like, again, these are basic questions that probably wouldn't typically be asked in an interview, but it's just interesting to gauge, yeah, again, like what they come up with on the spot and everything like that. And then again, just like basics, like again, I always like asking like what gets you excited about our salon in particular and what makes it different than other salons that you've applied at, just to see if they're more into like again, if like we're a big education salon, so that's a huge draw for the most part. And then like this is hands down my favorite because I find it so interesting. And this is a big way that we try to incentivize our team is by incentivizing by what motivates them. So I always like to ask what motivates you: money, success, positive reinforcement, or happiness. And again, there can be other motivating factors and everything like that, but that's always just a really interesting, and there's no wrong answer. If you say money, we're all working because we need money. I can say for myself, money is not a motivating factor for me. There are a lot of times where I have done a job and I completely forget that I'm supposed to collect a check at the end of it. Like I find that happiness and positive reinforcement are really big motivating factors for me. So then once you kind of know what motivates them, you're able to better motivate them in that way. So those are a couple of kind of just like basic ones on top of obviously, can you tell me a time where a client was unhappy and how did you deal with it? Or where do you see yourself in 5 years? Or, you know, like all of those kind of different ones. But yeah, just kind of again, diving a little bit deeper and asking some of those questions to kind of get to know them on a little bit of a deeper level as opposed to just surface.
Love it. Remember, everyone, a great interview process isn't about finding the perfect candidate on paper. It's about finding the right person that's going to fit within your culture. And often, you know, we say hire the attitude and train the skills. So make sure that you are asking, you know, the questions that are going to allow you to really feel what that person is, because you can train them on the technical skills if they're not perfect at their color placement or whatnot. But you can't train somebody to be nice. You can't train them to be, you know, polite. So it's a lot harder that they're going to just fit well. So you want to make sure that the interview ends up feeling more like a conversation as opposed to like question, answer, question, answer. Last bit of sort of tidbit around the hiring process is hire slowly and fire quickly, right? You want to make the right choice. Sometimes we're so desperate that we just, you know, hire somebody because they're the first person that, you know, comes through the door and we need a body. But that can actually be way more detrimental to your business because of the problems that they might cause while there. And we tend to hold on to people because we're scared about the revenue that we might lose. But we're actually causing, you know, a negative culture, and it's having an impact on other people in our team. So take a little bit more time to make sure that you choose the right person. And when you find somebody that's not working out, trust your instinct and be like, you know what, this just isn't the right fit. It's not going to work out long time. You might as well rip off the Band-Aid now, you know, and get back to it. So those are a couple of tips to help you sort of really master the interview process. We know that it's an ongoing struggle today, you know, to get enough staff members. So interview process is really, really critical to maximize your chances, right? Increase the likelihood of getting the right people on board to your team. Hope you learned something from today's episode. Now go get your hustle on and be the best version of yourself today. Thank you so much for listening to the Salon Scoop podcast. This show is produced by Salon S.O.S, a digital marketing agency by industry professionals for industry professionals. If you want simple and affordable solutions for any of your salon marketing needs, such as websites, client loyalty, Google search rankings, social media, or more, come visit us at salonsos.ca or on Instagram at salon.s.o.s. If you want to hear more episodes like this and help us continue to bring the industry great content, it would mean so much to us if you would support us in one of the following ways. Either share this episode with one other industry professional, and rate the show on Spotify or write us a quick review on Apple Music. We want to hear your feedback. If you have follow-up questions or ideas for future episodes, please reach out. DM us on Instagram at salonus.s.o.s or hit us up on our website again at salonsos.ca. Again, thanks so much for listening. Now go get your hustle on, keep smiling, and we'll catch you on our next episode.